Afternoon, everybody. So weird to be here alone for a change. Having one of my rant afternoons. I've been told repeatedly I don't know how to rant. So a quiet rant about AI, a quiet conversation about advice. This 5 Watt Live is brought to you with the support, as always, of TrueFire. More about my good friends at TrueFire later on in the stream. It might not surprise you, but I don't really think a lot about AI, separate from the videos that Beato makes on the subject. He's much closer to it. I'm not big for listening to Spotify or current popular music, really. Honestly, I don't spend enough time listening to music, but that's probably a topic for another live stream about focus. But I do a lot of internet research, and increasingly, I'm coming up against Google's AI search algorithm in new ways. And this puts me in mind to share some of those experiences and to ask and hear some of your experiences with that kind of thing as well. So get your AI examples and your opinions warmed up. I'll take time along the way to kick this around in the chat. Scotty Nail says, fake music is a great channel. I don't even know what that is. Scotty, we're going to have to come back to that. See the description for the links on the online store for t-shirts, hoodies, hats, etc. All the links also the links for Friends of 5 Watt on Patreon are there if you want to be more directly support 5 Watt World and stay in touch with me. If you've been thinking about starting a YouTube channel to improving your YouTube channel, think about buying my YouTube Mastery for Musicians course. Grab it to start or jumpstart your channel. 5 Watt World Barber collaboration overdrives are available on REVERB and directly from David. If you're international, I encourage you to go direct to David and he'll invoice you for it. It's a lot cheaper to do the shipping that way. David indulged me and did a special edition of his Exacta fuzz for the Jazzmaster video, and those are on sale. Oh, that's not the right pedal. That's not the right pedal. Who gets this stuff ready? This is a special edition of the Plus that he also did at my urging. I think he's got about 5 or 6 of these left up on Reverb. Mine is coming in the mail, and you can see David and I signed all of these. And these are very limited. I think we did like 15 total. So if you want to get one of those, it's a standard Plus. It's just in the Keith Williams OCD white with purple background, so I could have a full white pedal board. We don't need to talk about that anymore. That we have. That fuzz pedal, that Exacta fuzz, though, is a classic Barber flexibility example in that it goes all the way from Gilmore to Eric Johnson. So go find those. Go find them separate from this. All the links are in the description. Remember, if you have a comment or question, put it in the chat with question marks and a space, so I'll be sure that I understand that you guys are asking me a question, not talking among yourselves. Beve is here. The image I am allowed to use. Bebe's here, moderator to the stars and to me. And the music in the intro was, of course, John Cordy playing an Ibanez RG. I used a little snippet of that, but the original video, I have to put the description in the description, the original video link, because it is just smoking. And it's a guitar that John couldn't afford as a young man when he was a disciple of Petrucci and Dream Theater and all manner of shred. But he was able to get one now. And I think that natural RG is just beautiful. And despite he finally got one, and clearly he was really inspired. Despite the precision of those legato runs, I can attest to the fact that John is not AI in any way. Okay, so let's get going. Let's see. I can see lots of folks here. Jerry White, you guys are doing a good job of distracting me early in the stream. Keith would never do a live stream about AI, so I say this is AI. You have a point, and I did promise I'm going to cover this. Anyway, working on the Ibanez Tim Henson guitar was one that I borrowed for the Ibanez video. I like to play the guitars of the gear that I'm working on, and so in advance of working on the Ibanez script, I ordered a Tim Henson from people that I've known for a long time, the guys at the Manchester Music Mill in New Hampshire. They ended up actually selling it to me and then letting me return it because it was slightly used in the first place. Very sweet of them to do that. And they're great. And I wanted to spend some time with, as I said, and Also because Nathaniel Murphy of Chicago Music Exchange fame had said how much he liked that model. It is a really cool model, but that's not really the point. Although I will say, I'll come back to it when we look at the picture, but the tree of death that they call the fingerboard inlay, like the old tree of life, it's thorns and roses. My feeble little brain was not able to deal with that. I couldn't really keep track of where I was on the fingerboard. Anyway, yeah, I loved Robert saying John's phrasing is great. I love that at the end he just throws in a little bit of tapping. Like, oh yeah, I do this. I still do this. John's something else. So anyway. Anyway, I was working on the thumbnail and I was talking to David Barber, as I often am. And he's been playing with Sora, which is an AI image manipulation program. So I had taken some thumbnail pictures with the Ibanez guitar. So I shared those images with him, and the next day he got back to me with an image that you saw from the thumbnail, and I'll pop back and forth on this one. So that's the image of the thumbnail. And I think he was trying to get them to put some Tim Henson kind of hair on my head, and then it was filling in the background. He was going back and forth with it. And before I go any further, let me just say that David was a good friend to spend time playing around with this. I really think that the images he came up with helped the video produce as many views as it has. And I'm going to go through each of those and talk about them, because there's another thing that's it's not AI, it's just big database around thumbnails and what you all saw. But I wanted to say it helped the video get views, and we're almost at 100,000. It hasn't been a week. And so that I figured the Ibanez video would do well, as I touched on it back when I did the gem video, but this total history was a lot of fun. But I want to thank David right here. Okay, so let's go back. But that first image you could see with the hair and I don't know, I think it darkened the hair and it darkened the beard and stuff. I think it was trying to make me look younger. Went a little far, so I gave him some ideas, and he came back with the ones that I used for the video thumbnails. Somebody in the intro asked what a thumbnail was, and the fact is that I probably have a lot of terminology that I take for granted. A thumbnail is the image that's used to represent the video to everybody out there. Frankly, it's to get you to watch it. I always talk about thumbnails. In the course, I'd spend a lot of time talking about thumbnails, because you could probably say conservatively that you should spend 40 to 50% of your time working on thumbnails. And you might think that feels like, hollow marketing and all that kind of thing. But if you think of it in another way, which is, and this is how I always tell folks to think about it as a way to start a conversation. And starting a conversation is one of the hardest things about a conversation. So that's the thumbnail to me. That's the start of a conversation. Oh, Robert, thank you. We had a super chat. There we go. Robert sent us a nice super chat. Thank you so much. So that's what a thumbnail is. I gave him these ideas. My understanding that he asked the program to go further, and there was a lot of back and forth. And I think he sent me 8-10 images originally the next day. And he told the program to go further with the theme of the neck, and the neck and hand tattoos is where he started. And by the way, my wife and I had ordered some temporary tattoos for my neck and hands before we started doing this thing with David. And when they got here, it said that they lasted 10 to 14 days. That was a shift in my representation of the world that I wasn't willing to make. That level of commitment wasn't willing to make for a thumbnail. Anyway, so we gave up those ideas. We mailed those temporary tattoos back. Anyway, I shared those notes with David. He texted back. I told him that I shared these notes for the live with that. And David has been working with AI a lot. I think trying to suss it out, trying to get a sense of, what works well, what's helpful. Anyway, so he texted me back and I said, do you mind if I quote you? And he texted back and he said, in many ways, working with Sora is like dealing with a graphic artist who's very high and also still quite hungover from partying the night before. And I thought that was pretty funny. Having gone to school at an art school, I thought that was pretty funny. No offense to any graphic designers out there, none intended, or musicians for that matter. Anyway. So as I said, David sent maybe half a dozen images, and I chose the 3 that we saw, the Tim Henson-ish isms that I used on the thumb. What you might not know, and this is something that I wanted to cover, and I think people think of things as being AI, and I used to have a job where I was a university registrar, and my job was managing about 75% of the university's database and the interfaces with that, including the portal and a lot of big projects like that. Victor's still voting for the fake tattoos. I think we mailed them back, Victor. I think we're safe. I think we're good. Living in blue jean is enough for me. What you might not know is that YouTube lets you test, has a thumbnail test feature where you can upload 3 different thumbnails and it tracks which one does best with the audience over time. I thought it only ran a few days, but I actually researched this for this live, and it actually can run as long as 2 weeks if it's not clear that one is doing better than the others. And I think it's made the decision now, and it's only showing everybody the same one. But it actually can create some confusion because you might see one thumbnail one day, and then if you haven't watched the video yet, you might see it later. Got to wait for the weekend or whatever. You'll see a different thumbnail. You're like, why'd you change the thumbnail, Keith? I actually had loaded 3 thumbnails, and then YouTube is putting different ones in front of you to see which one prompts you to drop everything and watch the video right now, which I think is pretty funny. Actually, it's one of the tests that Rick and I have always talked about, is that there's a level of thumbnail where you go, yeah, that looks good, I'm going to watch that. And then there's a level of thumbnail where you do stop doing whatever you're doing and just watch the video right then, where I interrupt your life to force the video on you. Anyway, so that's why you might see different thumbnails, or you might think that I changed the thumbnail, and sometimes I used to, but frankly, with the new 3 thumbnail feature, I encourage anybody that I'm, consulting with or something to go ahead and put, the 3 thumbnails out there. So these are the 3 that I loaded, just so you see them all. There's this first rather tame one. And this is very much like the original picture where it's just got the neck and hand tattoos. And you can see that it's the filming set downstairs. And then there's this one, which I think is where it's settled now. And it was my favorite all along. And interestingly, David said it kind of went its own way with the black denim jacket, which I don't own, and the big silver chain, which I don't own. I do have sunglasses that aren't completely different than that, but no neck tattoos, etc. And my hair, though, is pretty dark. It's not that dark. And certainly my beard is not that dark. The one that kind of scared people and made people laugh all at once was this third one, which I don't think it showed a lot of people, and I almost didn't use it. I think David said, when David and I were texting about this yesterday, he said that the only thing he said to the program was that I should have like a little evil smirk, and this is what came back as the evil smirk one. And I wasn't going to use it, but when I started doing merchandise, t-shirts, etc., I only did them in navy at the beginning because that was the color I kind of thought of as the channel, navy blue and white, and that's what I thought of, and that's what I did. The mugs, the original mugs were just white with blue text. And then people were quickly like, how come I can't have this color? How can I? And I was like, why would I control what color shirts you wear? And frankly, why would I keep you from buying a shirt that I wanted to sell? So I now offer them in as many colors as possible. This is sort of the same thing. The Ibanez Demon one was like, I don't know, maybe some people will think that's really funny and it'll make them click on it. So I left it. Eventually, YouTube does give me feedback about what percentage of each of the videos got clicks. So maybe the next time I'm on with you guys, we can look at it. So, okay. So in the description to the Ibanez video, I promised that would be the only time you'd ever see AI on the channel. And then of course you got today's thumbnail, which is the most outrageous manipulation of the original picture that there was. But of course that's because I'm here to make this point today. So Manish Boy 1 says, doesn't take much for you to interrupt my day, Keith. Thanks, man. Okay, so it was good to see everybody there. Canadian tuxedo, denim shirt, and denim jeans. We might have to get a Canadian to weigh in on this. I've always heard that, that's what I think of as a Canadian tuxedo, but I've been told it's denim jacket with denim jeans. Who do we have? Yeah, Amanda's here. Amanda, what's a Canadian tuxedo from a Canadian's perspective? What's an actual Canadian tuxedo? Put it in the chat. So that was the thumbnail part, and that was sort of something very visible. That was a brush with AI for the channel that I wanted to share with everybody and talk about using it. And then frankly, why I'm not going to use it is going to be more clear from what I'm going to talk about next year. But I wanted to have everybody, if you've used AI in any form or another, particularly if you've done any of these image manipulations, really early, if I scroll all the way back. Oh, it didn't come up over here. Before the video started, Bayer Incognito put some free questions in the chat. You guys can probably see them in YouTube. They're not showing up in Ecamm now. And he's asking questions about YouTube, about AI, sorry. And interestingly, his icon has clearly an image that's been manipulated with some sort of filter program. I won't go so far as to say AI. I think the term is thrown around pretty liberally, and that's part of what we're talking about here. I think that in general, from my limited knowledge of how database works, and frankly, what until recently they referred to as big data, big data is really just big database stuff. So, Robert Chan Russell's here, says he's Canadian and a tuxedo is a tuxedo. If you Google it, you're just going to get the AI explanation. Jacket and jeans. Okay. Perry's here. And Perry says, well, I've used it in the sense I used to get paid to develop AI models, LMAO. Got myself the frick out of doing that, though. There's more ethical things to work on. You know, I actually got, Perry worked on high-level security stuff for many years. And so even when Perry was doing scripts for me, he doesn't do any online content. So we never even got to do this. I mean, we did chats and stuff, but I never did a video chat with Perry. But when my wife and I were in Boston, we actually got to have a long meal. We talked a little bit about AI while we were there. So we actually got to sit down with Perry, and that was lovely. Robert's come back. This is not what this is about today, the outfit, but it is good 5-watt world lore. That's great. Thank you. All right. Mario says, I've used AI to separate song stems to be able to learn certain guitar parts. It saves a lot of time. That is a use. And actually, David and I have talked about using it for that, but we haven't yet. Mr. Cordy's here. Mr. Cordy, we were talking about you. Could you tell? Did you hear us? Anyway. So, all right. So keep putting your examples in the your examples of things that you've done with AI in the chat, and I'll press on. How's that? Folks that attend the live stream might be surprised to learn that I am often accused. I mean, often as in, I don't know how many comments I get a week. On average, I get about 650,000 views a month. So I don't know how many comments I come through. You know, I still read them all. And I heart them or delete them. That's the only two choices that YouTube gives me. It's like I can either heart them and see them once, or they're gone. But you might be surprised to learn that I'm often accused of being an AI-generated channel. I think that people are surprised that there's somebody still writing scripts like I do that are sort of term papers. And if you saw, I used to have the bookshelf behind me. Rick convinced me that I should have it in the shot downstairs for the full videos, because it kind of emphasizes the fact that I have this library, this growing library of books that I refer to build my short histories. And it's one of the areas where I think in the Epiphone video, I mentioned that people would make a different video than the one I made. And I quipped that I'd be glad to view that video, which I sometimes put in the comments for people, because everyone's experience is different and it should be that way. But I build these out of text, and I build them out of text written by people that I trust, who have been doing this even longer than me, and who are older than me even in most cases. So it always makes me chuckle when people, my wife particularly thinks it's funny when people accuse me of being AI. If they'd ever seen a live stream, maybe they would see the flaws in my rambling and they wouldn't think it's AI. Or maybe it's the mispronunciations or in the final edits that they think is AI, that AI isn't smart enough to pronounce things correctly yet. Maybe it's because of the misspelling and mispronunciations that think it's AI. I don't know. Years ago, Rick said that once people saw that I'd had some success with the gear history videos, others would get in the space and start competing with me. And maybe that would have happened if I was pulling down bigger view numbers. And some have actually dabbled in it, only to leave the space to me in the end. And I think it's that writing a term paper every 2 weeks that kind of drove them out. And then I have friends like Tim Pierce or Rhett Shull, who often will reach out and cite my videos or even borrow a little clip of a history video about a 335 or something and just put it in their video with permission, which is always very flattering. And I want to share that at Rick's urging, this is over a year ago, and they tell me that the model keeps getting better. But at Rick's urging, about a year ago, I spent a day trying to get ChatGPT to draft a script for me. I chose a topic that I just finished, the Fender Bassman, and though I told it to write in my style, and I told it to look at a bunch of my videos for material, and it took a while chugging through that, and it did disturbingly well in some spots, kind of with my more flowery language, emulate me. The content, well, it just wasn't, I don't know, what's the technical term? Correct. It wasn't correct. Which brings me to the specific examples there. While writing the script, the Ibanez script, I was trying to remember the name of the company that designed the tube screamer for Ibanez. I remembered that Maxon was the parent company, but that was a subsidiary. And this is when I did this video. This video is old, and actually it's recently had a resurgence. I can't tell you why. It's one of those things where it got 40,000 views out of nowhere last month for no reason I could tell you. I asked Google to tell me the name of the parent company because Maxon had a subsidiary company that actually did the design. And this is a really nerdy little detail, but I wanted to remember it, so I Googled it. And you know what? I should have done a screen grab at the moment because it came back and it told me that Maxon was the company that designed the pedal. And its source, it cited my own video as the source of that knowledge. It referred me to me. Now, most of the world thinks that Ibanez developed the pedal. A smaller subset know that about the Maxon connection. And then an even smaller set of people know that a subsidiary of Maxon named Nishin Onpa was the subsidiary that did the design, and that the person that designed it, I've got his picture here. Where are we? Here we are. Susumu Tamura was the guy who designed it. This is a fairly current picture from an interview a couple of years ago. He's alive and well and living in Matsumoto, Japan. And I could digress and say how many times I had to fight with the autocorrect feature in Pages to spell those names correctly, but I'll resist, sort of. Of course, this has to do with the way AI interprets the question. I phrased it in many different ways and got different answers each time, each more or less correct. Correct being in air quotes here from a certain point of view. Your answers are only ever as good as the questions that we can generate, of course. Before I give you the second example from my research, let me go here. The last little bit of that Tube Screamer story is that the agreement with Ibanez, once they sold Ibanez the design, Maxon actually produced the pedals, I think, until 2003, whereas Ibanez had somebody else build them. And then they were allowed to sell them under the name Maxon during that period of time, but only in Asia. And then at that point, they were allowed to sell the pedals in the United States as well. Well, I should say the rest of the world as well. I saw a question go by. My buddy asked Zach. Zach Child says, have you ever used AI to enhance photos? I did on a photo that I didn't check closely and got some fun comments. Yeah, the only ones I've had, I haven't done it, but my buddy my buddy David did, as I outlined earlier. I saw Tim Lurch drop in. Tim, it's always good to see you. Keith, AI is using you as much as you are using AI. One of the old expressions from the early days of online stuff was a friend of mine in the computing department at Binghamton. That's how long ago it was, because I was at University of Vermont from 2001. So this is over 25 years ago. He always said that if there was an online feature like Gmail that was free, then in fact I was the product. That they were giving me something for what they were taking from me. And I think that's the same idea. Mario V689 says, I often tell people that AI is as evil as your intentions are. Just like when Napster was in full swing, I only used it to find music that was not available commercially. Interesting. That's an interesting point. I'm looking for other questions before I go into this next example. I've threatened to play a different Bee Gees song. At my acoustic jam, I'll do "To Love Somebody" by the Bee Gees, a cover by Iron and what's that band? Anyway, an acoustic cover of it. But I can't get my voice up there for Massachusetts. I can't get up there for Massachusetts. Okay, I think I got the questions. Go ahead and keep adding your examples in here. Oh, here we go. Raymond Meir says, I subscribe to an AI site for vocal replacement. I sing, my pitch choices remains the same as it is. It's as if I borrowed somebody's vocal cords. Makes my songs so much better. My voice is not that good. That's interesting. I would love to hear both versions. There's so many great singers, and I mean great singers in the way somebody develops a tune, delivers a tune, not necessarily how on pitch they are. People that I really love. One of my favorite singers of all time is Peter Gabriel, and I don't think Peter Gabriel has what we would think of as a classically perfect singing voice, but he can deliver it with a lot of emotion. All right. Where are we? Oh, we're ready. We're at the half hour at the point, and I am more than halfway through my material. I always joke that I don't have enough to get us through the hour. I don't have enough talking to get us through the hour today. You can be glad. Let's see here. Let me run my TrueFire ad, and I'll be right back. I always promote lessons over new gear, so TrueFire has been the perfect partner for 5 Watt World. I'm interested in all kinds of music, and by taking advantage of TrueFire's All Access Pass, I can always find something to scratch the itch I have for learning more about guitar. As a viewer of 5 Watt World, you get an exclusive 50% discount on the All Access Pass, or you can take a 35% discount on any of the courses in the catalog by using the dedicated links in the video description. I really enjoy TrueFire, and I'll bet you will too. Sign up using the link in the description to support 5 Watt World and get some great lessons at the same time. Practice smart and play hard with TrueFire. I'd like to thank TrueFire for their support in making this section of the video. There we go. Amanda says she had to take a call, but she's back to give the just outside of Toronto opinion here. Canada tuxedo, denim jacket, and jeans. Bonus for a denim shirt. There we go. See, this is an example. There's lots of times where I wish I could just conference in somebody from the chat. Raymond says he's got an example. I would love to just bring that right in, but we can't. Anyways, let me give you another example, one that happened around the same time as that basement video, and it was one of the biggest mistakes that ChatGPT made, and I'll describe why I think it happened. When I was working on that video, I did a search to a list of users, and this image of the Rolling Stones came up. This is from the 1966 tour. I think this show was in Hawaii. And you can see that they were all using piggyback amps. And the ChatGPT said that it was an example of the Rolling Stones using Fender Bassman amps. That is not correct. I know from reading Andy Babiuk's The Rolling Stones Gear that they are not Bassmans, because the Bassman is more, not Bassmans, but they were Showman amps. The reason they used them was because they were one of the loudest amps available in the world at the time. And this is a picture of Brian Jones, of course, playing as Blonde Showman in the studio. But the fact is, people got it wrong a lot. Let me go back to the original picture. They look like basements. And because the basement is a way more popular amplifier, many more people have owned them, etc. And because it's a grainy photo, even though I do think that if you zoomed in, you might be able to see that it's a single word that's longer than the word basement. Is it? No, it's the same number of letters. It looks different. Anyway, but because of grainy photo, etc., lots of people think and put it online that piggyback amp is a piggyback amp of any kind, so it must be a basement. And this is very often cited incorrectly on the internet that the band used basements. And these people, haven't read Babiuk. And so that's what AI thinks the answer is. The AI answer here, of course, is being driven by the most common answer, not the correct answer. AI doesn't know the correct answer. It knows the answer that's most often given out on the internet for the question being asked. And that's all it knows. In other words, it doesn't know what's in Andy Babiuk's Rolling Stones gear. It only knows the answer that is the most often given by us in endless chats and forums. And it's only as smart as all of us put together, which is not so great. So what are some examples of AI gaffes that you guys have come across? Have there been times where you've done a search? Is there times when you've done a search that you've come across something and it spits it back at you and you know that you read someplace that that's not the case? Like my basement example. I run into this all the time. I get people correcting my scripts all the time with their opinions. They don't tend to cite their sources because it's usually something that they believe for a long time. But the fact that I can always fall back on where I read it and can cite it, and I do. I say that at the end of my videos. I sleep well. But the reality is there are lots of things that are widely believed that are not correct. Actually, I was talking to David Barber and I used the quote, just because a large number of people believe something doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And I said, what guy said that? And he came back with the woman who had said it. And he goes, you can't remember because it's not a guy, it's a woman. A novelist is credited with that quote. And I'm not going to come up with her name right now. I apologize. But I think that's great for us to realize in a couple of different ways around this AI thing is great. Tumblers is saying the obvious AI information, but not wisdom. Yeah, wisdom is a whole other thing. That's for sure. Perry says, how many R's are in the word strawberry? AI gets absolutely befuddled by that one. Really? Now we're all going to have to go try that. No, Mark, you are very smart. But we would, like the rest of the people at 5 Watt World, we would all pull our copy of Andy Babiuk's gearbook down to see what those piggyback amps were in that photograph. Looking for other comments. I saw some good stuff go by. It's not a point system that we're working on here, Christian. But I appreciate you needing credit. Everybody's here for their reasons. All right. And let me go and give you my final little AI moment here. That came this week. It was a nice day here on Sunday. It was beautiful and sunny, cool. So I threw a wool shirt over my denim shirt and waded out into the garden to dig up a patch of lawn around some plantings we had done where we put the plants in, but I'd been mowing around them poorly with the hand mower all summer. And so digging the grass up and, shaking it out, knocking the dirt sod off, etc., was a job. And I was out there for a couple hours. So I had been saving, because John Cordy had mentioned it in a video that he did last week. He had mentioned the interview that Dan Huff did with Tom Bukovac. And here's the thumbnail. I'm always impressed by how thoughtful Bukovac is about guitar, but also just about life in general. And Huff did a great job of bringing this out in Book 2. But I have a clip that I want to run. So let's run the clip.
I was talking to Dan Auerbach the other day, and I asked him about AI. And like he goes, man, I ain't worried about it at all, man. He's like the shit that humans have been doing for the last 10 years sounds like computers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's like, which is absolutely true. And like, we're trying to sound like computers. And I think like the AI will be able to do that better than we can because they are computers, but that will push us into being more human. Mm-hmm. And it will make us go, well, the only thing we can do now as musicians is to delineate ourselves from AI and do something that AI can't do. And the only thing that we can do that AI can't is be human. And so I think it could be good. I mean, everyone's painting this sort of doom gloom thing about, AI is going to take all your jobs away. Yeah, it'll affect lots of jobs. I wouldn't want to be a graphic designer in this day and age, things like that. But I think it could open a beautiful renaissance of like making us be human again. Because we've not really been trying to be human. Yeah. A lot of us, right? I mean, there's always been artists that are really human, but they're sort of like down here. All the music that people really like these days is really popular. Is very computer driven, very
or just the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, then you go into some of the other artists who are just totally denying any and all that.
Right.
Now, and they're not on the well. There is no Billboard Hot 100. I mean, there is, but it's not driven by that cultural stamp of approval. A number one song anymore. Right. It's just out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're saying that
I think it could be good. It could force us all to really start looking more at our humanity and like.
I like that.
Because everyone loves, like, when you hear like just the sort of unfixed mistakes on old Stones records and shit like that. Like, everyone loves that. I mean, still.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loves that they just left it on there, And it's so cool. And like, we've reached this point where no one does that anymore.
Yeah.
They don't put mistakes on records. And maybe it'll bring that back, and maybe that'll be like the thing. Maybe that will be cool again.
Yeah.
And that would be awesome.
I love this. In a world of doom and gloom, and it actually seems to have sparked that in the chat. And let me just say before I go back to my notes, the number one way to motivate people is to scare them. And when we talk about jobs going away, to my knowledge, some computer program isn't deciding to lay people off, but it doesn't stop corporations from using AI, the promise of AI that they're investing so much money or seeming to invest so much money. And I've seen lots of good online videos about how really this investment is all very circular and kind of hollow. So, spend some time watching some videos about the way the AI bubble is getting financed. And this is not a finance channel. I'm not here to give anybody financial advice, etc. Anyway, and Perry is right there. Perry has done years of machine learning programming. This is his field, and it was a very interesting conversation. All right, back to it. So in a world of doom and gloom visions on the impacts of AI, this idea of Bukovac seems to be hopeful, and I hope on the money. I think Bukovac nails it when he says that the music has been going to sound more and more like computers for years. Of course, computers will do a better job of making music that increasingly sounds like it was created and performed by a computer anyway. But that doesn't erode what humans can do with music. Along those lines, I remember a conversation I had with Rick Beato. This is long before his success on YouTube. He wasn't even doing YouTube yet. He was still producing records, and he was starting to worry about the fact that labels were not supporting new projects anymore, that budgets were drying up, for making records. He was frankly worried about being able to make a living. And what you might not know about Rick is that when he was, yes, a record producer, he did a lot of songwriting, and he's really good at it. eventually even having a number one country hit song called Carolina. But this was years away at the time of that conversation. To encourage Rick, to encourage my friend, I reminded him that there always be work for someone that could write a song. I said, you can go into a room with nothing and come out with something, a song. There will always be work for people with that type of creativity. And I think that's what Book is talking about here. And it made me think, especially the Book of X example of having people sit on the porch, made me think about my acoustic jam. I need to get better pictures of the acoustic jam, but this is one from a year ago or more that I do about once a month. And I think I need to do it more often. And we need to celebrate those moments of human interaction. And you've heard me go endlessly on about how you should all figure out a way to play music with other people on a regular basis. But the other night, after the evening was over and we were kind of winding down and people were finishing their drinks and stuff, the mandolinist, who was a fledgling fiddle player, and our regular fiddle player who's sitting in the corner there in that photo, wasn't there that night, so he got to play more fiddle. And when he gets to play more fiddle, I'll often push my singing voice into another key so he can play in the key of D, which is the key that like all great fiddle tunes are in, and it's a really easy key to solo in. And at the end of the night, he turned to everybody and he said, you know, on one of those fiddle solos was pretty good. What tune was that on? And it was a moment of unexpected human inspiration and, dare I say, greatness. And we were all left trying to remember which tune it was on, because it was a great solo, especially for a guy who really hasn't been playing the violin that long and doesn't get to play that often. We need to learn those moments of focus, of flow, lean into those moments of focus or flow, and mark them down in our memory to come back to next time. Because it's times like that when we surprise ourselves that are the keepers. And here's my last example of that. Back in 2001, I moved away from Binghamton, New York, to Burlington to take the job as registrar at UVM. Besides the many friends I was leaving behind a weekly jazz gig that I played with the band Miles Ahead, a quintet that I put together. And this band evolved over time, but this is the final version from the final year. And this was it was half students and half faculty. This band in particular only had Tina Lama on bass, who actually, interestingly, went on to become a professional bass player in New York and gigs all over New York. But one of my best friends at the time was the writer, and still is a great friend. This is a grainy picture from the last night of the band playing. Was Liz Rosenberg, and this is her son Eli, and it's been a long time. Eli's in his 30s now. But when I told Liz that I was about to leave town, and she told me that I would miss the band more than I realized, she said she told me that I didn't allow for a lot of what she called organized imperfection in my life. Organized imperfection. Yeah, she's a writer for a reason. I loved that. I have always thought about that, and I think about it every time I play music with other people. Of course, she was right. It was those weekly stepping off the ledge moments, playing over classic jazz tunes, that reassuring reality that if I crashed in the middle of a solo, nothing bad was going to happen to the greater world. It was a lesson to my subconscious that I needed to be reassured of. This is me playing my Parker Fly at the Dog in a suitably oversized late 90s white shirt. And I did get through those tunes. Everybody else in the band was a better player than me. But that's the situation you want to put yourself in if you can. But sometimes, just sometimes, I surprised myself and I played something that I didn't know was there, something that couldn't be explained by an algorithm. And those were the keeper moments, of course, the most human moments. And this image that Bukovac throws out of great music on the porch in Appalachia is right there. Not perfect, but perfectly human, and on occasion, really smoking. There's my little poetry ending. All right, let's see what else we got for questions and comments here. Russell Zahner says, you're not really an expert in some subject. If you're not a real expert, you would never realize A is incorrect. That's absolutely true. This is one of the reasons I'm talking about this, is that I think in general, people assume that AI is the last word on things. And I'll go so far as to say, I'm not the last word on things. I can make mistakes. I've made mistakes in videos before, and when I catch them, especially early videos, I would put the answers in the description. I would say, I say this at this point in the video, and that's something you need to keep in mind. I'm a human like anybody else, but they're my mistakes, and like I said, I own them. John says, I played some jazz with my dad last week and was reminded of why I should be playing jazz. There you go. Here, we don't need that picture of me from the 90s up there. I saw some questions go by, had some comments go by. Everybody's talking to each other. Love it. Brazil Brush Rocks. Hey, how you doing? Keith, after creating that cool thumbnail image of yourself, are you tempted to get inked? No. I love that. I love that question. Boy, that's I don't know if you know this. I have a master's degree in sociology. And the subject of my master's was really what they probably call identity studies now, which is, in sociology, is a study of how your identity as a person is formed. I'm still absolutely fascinated with that. There's a lot of the enough theme of the channel that comes back to, what kind of, I did a video called, or maybe a live stream, what your guitar says about you. That was based on a watch video I saw, and I thought it was an interesting take that you would make assumptions, maybe stereotypes or whatever you want to say. But I had a therapist, when I would talk about a dream, he'd say, I can tell you exactly what that means. It means just what you think it does. And identity is the same thing. The things that would represent you and your identity are exactly what you think they are, not what somebody else would tell you. I'm not the least interested in somebody telling me what it is that Mira works really well for me as a guitarist, but I am very interested in the fact that I've got 4 Miras in this room. They all sound very different. I mean, very different, and that those work for me, and that's really interesting. So anyway. Here we go. Nick something something. I just handed in my final college essay for sociology, and I wrote about the dangers and potential future of AI in creative spaces. I really find the topic fascinating. Value your opinion. Thanks. I value all of your opinions here. That's kind of why I brought this up, is I wanted to hear what people were discovering out there. Angus Young 7668 says, it's sad that AI is being overused on literally everything, even on the simplest things. It must be fascinating. Nick something something is in college there taking courses. It must be a very interesting moment in history for college professors to be reviewing papers now. I think back to maybe a year ago, Rick did a video where he was talking about how he was playing something on his phone, something off Spotify. He's kind of studying, as Rick does. And his kids go, Dad, why are you listening to that? It's AI. And Rick's like, how do you, and he did a whole video about it. He's like, how do you, can you tell that's AI? And they're like, you can just tell. Listen to it. You can tell it's AI. In a world of, auto-tune vocals and 6251 chord progressions, how, where everything has gotten regularized, like Bukovac said, we've been making music that sounds more and more like computers for years. In a world like that, what was it that his kids could hear? And they nailed it. Like every time he would quiz them with it, the kids would get it right. And he admitted in that video, he could not often tell what was happening. And I think that's interesting. And I'm somewhat reassured by that. I don't know if I should be. Corey Rini says, 550 says, Rick Meow has done some excellent videos on how computers are ruining music, making it sound so formulaic and it's so boring. One of Rick's greatest teachers is a guy named Steve Brown, who's still around playing gigs up in Ithaca in his late 70s, I think Steve is. And I took a few jazz guitar lessons with Steve. He's a rough teacher. He is a tough guy. Man, he can play. But I remember him saying that pop music has long slid towards the least common denominator. The simpler music is, the better. And this is one of my kind of guilty pleasures is EDM. I'm really interested in techno and electronic. I've always been interested in electronic music ever since college with Tangerine Dream and progressive bands using a lot of keyboards. I've always been fascinated. And I've even spent some time writing that kind of music. I'm very interested in soundtrack writing and how simple music can be and still evoke emotion from us. While at the same time, I think that that's an example of I haven't seen examples of computer-generated music yet that move me emotionally, or maybe I have, and I don't know it is. I don't know where we are in that spectrum yet. So, Mario says, my son just graduated college and he told me the professors have programs that they run papers through to detect AI that are very accurate. They've long had, I worked in higher ed, and of course, I was at one time on committees that reviewed plagiarism cases. They've long had programs that look for, that kind of sweep for quotes, and everybody submits papers electronically now, I think, to facilitate that. So. Yeah, here we go. Rapbird says the same thing I was saying a minute ago. You can all agree that something can't be replaced with the feeling you get when you make music with passion and skill developed over the years. Or I'm going to come back to the music that you make with other people. That moment cannot be reproduced. If you haven't seen it, Guthrie Trapp put up a little clip of Guthrie. These guys are sitting at Brett Papa's house. It's got to be, it must be, Brett has this sort of nexus of the Nashville guitar universe right now, which I think is just the coolest because Brett's a very cool guy. But it's Jed Hughes, Tom Bukovac, and Guthrie Trapp playing an acoustic tune. And it's very loose, and you hear Bukovac like calling out the changes and telling people when to go to the B section and stuff. And they don't miss a beat. It's a testament to the level of playing that happens in a studio in Nashville. These guys are just incredible. And it's not just that they get through it. It's that they're saying something in this 3 acoustic guitars moment. And they're all playing really different acoustic guitars with different voices. And they're all very different players, with different levels of sort of rock and roll and bluegrass and chicken picking in their background. And man, it all just comes through in that moment. I guess they're going to do a gig at 3rd and Lindsay. I don't, they don't need my help probably filling that room down in Nashville. But check out that video on Guthrie Trapp's channel if you haven't seen it yet. I think it's a great example of what Book and Huff were talking about the other day. Right there, right on that video. And it's about 3.5 minutes long. When I was making my lunch, I listened to it like 4 or 5 times. It was just incredible. Yeah, I think different opinions are different. I think Bukovac is very close to what makes music sell, if you will. I mean, he does it for a living. He's been doing it for a living for a long time. I think it'd be easy to argue that he's the #1 session guitarist in the world at this point. But at the same time, Bukovac's not playing on a lot of the top 10 Spotify that Rick is reviewing, every 3 or 4 months. Those tunes do not have a lot of guitar, let alone, 3 acoustic guitars ripping down a melody. So. Nick says, thanks very much for my comment. It's very interesting to see the generally negative attitude towards AI and creativity amongst my peers. I think it's very interesting. If you're a college age, and I really miss this about not working in higher education now, which I haven't done for almost 10 years now. to have a direct access to people who are at that age. I remember I have a brother who's like 25, 30 years younger than me. And I remember at one point he gave up his smartphone. And I was really surprised because I had used to get texts from him and stuff. And I was encouraged that he went to like a dumb phone, a flip phone. I don't know what kind of phone he's got in his pocket right now. But I'm encouraged when people take a step away. I can tell you that I have a long-standing, I would say love-hate, but I don't really love it. I have a long-standing struggle with Instagram. I post more rarely on Instagram than I used to. I don't really feel like it does a lot for the channel. I don't see how a 45-second spot. Well, you know what? I'll take that back. I'm very interested in how much information you could convey in a short period of time. And I enjoy working with David Barber on coming up with ways to demonstrate pedals that might give people a sense of whether or not that pedal would work for them in a very short period of time. And I think you can do that. But I'm worried that our ability to focus, I'm worried about my ability to sit and listen to a record, or even one side of a record, from being on things like Instagram, where I'm training my brain to only pay attention 10 seconds at a time. And I'll probably still do a live stream about it at some point. But I read a book a couple of years ago called Stolen Focus by a guy named Johan Hari, which is an excellent, I've mentioned it here before, it's just an excellent book about what is challenging about having an ability to focus. And if all of you also have fallen out of habit in listening to music, and like me, just pick up your phone and throw on a YouTube video when at one point in your life, what you'd have done is thrown, in my example, a cassette or a CD, and just turn music on instead of somebody talking in your ear. And I think that's a different part of your brain is still free to think of ideas. Before I forget to mention it, I wanted to mention, you probably noticed in the background, I changed out the amps. The amps back there are both cabinets that Mojotone built for me. They're white with silver. They were inspired by Kenny Wayne Shepherd's rig that I saw. My buddy Jesse Jacobs took me to the Hendrix Experience show, and I won't say that Kenny Wayne's playing was the highlight of the evening for me, but his guitar tone was undeniable. And I have a Tweed Deluxe that's at David's right now that we're prepping for a video on Tweed Deluxes. That's the same thing, white Tolex with silver grill cloth that David refers to as the Tolex Deluxe. But they're beautiful. And those are both for 12-inch speakers. One is a Mojotone Princeton, and the other one is a Princeton Tone Master. And I find with a 12-inch, specific 12-inch speaker, you can really get the Tone Master, and I just realized that this is coming in to a bookend. The Tone Master, of course, is a modeled version of a Princeton, and that's not AI, but it certainly is computer-generated models of things. And I find with a different speaker, it sounds less hi-fi, less modeled. It sounds more like a real Princeton to me. And if you mix it with another Princeton, or if you mix it with a Tweed Deluxe, which is a great combination, a black panel amp and a Tweed amp, it's absolutely incredible. So that's what's back there, and that's going to be the new set for a little while. I got silver and white guitars. I got issues with making things match. Okay, any last comments here? Oh, here we go. Maybe include a scheduled deprogramming or focus enhancement time, like say disintegration, dark side of the moon, etc. I think that's true. Amanda says, I like Instagram because I'm goofy there and maybe inspire people to not take themselves so seriously. I agree. I think that there's lots of things where having a place to express yourself is really important. But the percentage of things that are in your feed that are the channels that you subscribe to, as opposed to the percentage of stuff that's in your feed, that stuff they've decided to try to sell you, kind of wears me down. So I want to thank everybody for listening to my ranting about that. All that silver along with the Mira Keith channeling his inner Ace Frehley. You know, I'd have to get out the only Les Paul that I have, or maybe my two maybe I should get them out. My Calling City Limits and my Les Paul, but having a little moment to mention Ace is great. It was one of the first important guitar players for me, like so many people my age. So, all right. Thanks again for everybody for being here. Thanks for giving so many good comments. I really appreciate it. I'm going to have Mr. Cordy play us out with that clip. And I want to thank TrueFire and I want to thank Beve for being here, of course. Yeah, I will see everybody in a couple weeks. In the meantime, I'm working on, go ahead and watch that Ibanez video if you haven't yet. And I am working on the next video. And here's one of the big texts. That's the big hint. Not a big surprise. Needed to be done, though. Okay, I'll see everybody soon. Take care. Bye-bye.